another one nearby too. That wireless.
Oh, and yes, the blessings, they can do those a cappella. Yeah, not without not with having to find the key.
No, I told her. The thing is, this congregation likes to sing.
Oh, did you want a chair? Okay.
I
Great, you
can
have a
sit there.
bench. Yeah.
Only at the Claymore. All I can play are Christmas carols. Might not be
Never know. Throw a few extra flats in there, and I'm sure it will sound Jewish.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
Roughly, yes. That sounds about right. I watched the first 3 episodes. And not bad. A little long-winded, which that's token. But otherwise not bad. No, I had to stop watching because I kept falling asleep in the middle of watching. Because even its fast points were still slow.
Yeah. Are you watching Andor?
I should watch it.
Andor, the new Star Wars?
No, I haven't seen that one. Yeah, whatever.
Sarah would like to also.
Hine ma tovu manaim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu manaim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, shevet achim gam yachad. Okay, Shabbat Shalom and happy Simchat Torah. We can just sing Hine ma tov all night. It's a great song. So welcome to those here to celebrate Simchat Torah and Shabbat this week. So I'd like to start by lighting our Shabbat candles and invite up Rachel, Loria to light our candles. And Lori, or Rachel to do the reading and Lori to light. Or you can rock, paper, scissors, who gets the biggest mitzvah.
May our eyes sparkle with the light of Torah, and our ears hear the music of its words. May the space between each letter of the scrolls bring warmth and comfort to our soul. May the syllables draw holiness from our hearts, and may this holiness bring peace to us and to all God's creatures.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Thank you. So at this point in our service, we think of the week that has passed, and we hold on to all of the good things from this past week. So if you had an experience that inspired gratitude, if you have some good news to share, no matter how big or how small, I invite you to share that joy with the community now. Yeah, Danielle? Nice. Mazel tov. Yeah, Laura? It's always cool to see wildlife. Anything else we're grateful for this week? Small, cool moments? Yeah.
I got to bury my parents at Arlington National Cemetery this week, and it was relief that it's all over.
I'm glad you had that beautiful ritual this week. And Russ?
Had dinner with my grandson on Monday and my youngest granddaughter on Wednesday.
Awesome. Some good family time. So we thank God for all these blessings, including the blessing of simply being alive for this moment in time with the words of Shehechianu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Amen. And now everyone who's comfortable, if you don't have any injuries or medical limitations at the moment, I invite you to rise. We're going to have a little dance lesson so we can practice dancing for Simchat Torah. So let's make a smaller circle. So everyone take a couple steps in. Yeah, you can leave your flag in your seat for now. So many of you may be familiar with this dance move already, but if not, that's why we're practicing together. So this in Hebrew, it's a very common move in Israeli folk dance. It's called the Mayim step, which means water, and it kind of flows the way you would see like ripples of water in nature. Some people know it by the English term, the grapevine, right? So we'll practice very slowly. Let's start going to the left side, and we'll put right foot in front of, and then step to the left, then right foot behind us, and then step to the left again. So that's the whole move. Let's do this at least 3 times, all right? So right, forward, left, back, forward. Okay, we're already falling. Okay. All right, let's try it again. All right. Right, forward, left, back, right, left. Sorry. I'm going to stand over here for a couple minutes for my own safety. All right. So we go right, forward, left, back, right, left, right, forward, left, back, right, left. All right, we've got it. So this is the basic move. And depending on how much hand sanitizer you want to use, we can also hold hands in a circle. And let me change the slide so we can see some other dance moves we might pull out tonight. All right, I have to go over here. All right, so as you can see in this picture, right, we can hold hands if you're comfortable with that. And another dance move is while holding hands, you start with a larger circle, and then everyone takes 3 steps in at the same time to kind of create a group momentum forward. Not too far, you don't want to, if you want, you can high five people across from you, but you need to communicate that so no one gets a hand to the forehead. And then takes 3 steps back. So we'll try that. All right, so, yeah, so I'll come in, thank you. And we'll pretend this is a hand. All right, so then we just go at the same pace, about 3, you could do 4, we'll see how far we get, okay? 1, 2, 3, woo! Back, 2, 3. All right, try that. 1, 2, 3, woo! Back, 2, 3. One more time. Yes, it's very necessary. Woo! 2, 3. All right, so this is another great move, and we're going to practice doing that to the beat of music. So we've got some of our klezmer musicians here, okay? And we'll try our best. And then lastly, on the screen, you can see there's some other possibilities. So you can always stick to the Mayim step as long as your neighbors are doing that. Or you can, if everyone else is doing the 1, 2, 3, woo, we'll all do that together. So this is about synchronicity, right? Connecting to each other, building community. But we can also make conga lines if you're like, this is getting too complicated, this back forward, front forward. So that's a legitimate Torah dance. If you want to get fancy, we can make a little swirl, as you see in the picture. So we'll see what we feel like doing. And then if you're not able to, if you need to take a break from dancing, you can always sit in your seat and kind of lift a little Torah or wave your flag to help us celebrate. Okay? So, do we need any practice dancing before we do our real dancing? Do we want to practice with the beat? Okay. So we'll do a little practice dance, then we'll bring in the ritual and music. Okay? All right. So let's have a beat or any random thing we can practice just walking in.
What are we doing first? The Mayim or
Let's start with Mayim.
oh, we're holding hands in Mayim?
Yeah, so if it's too, we don't want anyone falling. So if it's too far apart, that means everyone needs to take a step in so that we're not straining. All right. No dislocated shoulders tonight. 1, 2, bum, ba, bum, ba, ba, ba. So you feel the beat. I think we're doing a pretty good job.
Speed it up there.
All right, so I think we're pretty good at mime. No one's fallen, everyone's still alive. So far, so good. All right, and now another beat for our 1, 2, 3, woo, back 2, 3, woo. We'll do that 3 times, okay? Yeah. 1, 2, 3, woo, back 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, woo, back 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, woo, back 2, 3. All right, so we've got that. Are we ready for real live music? All right, I think we can do it. All right. So in between each song with dancing, oh, also, we need our guest of honor. Who's our first Torah scroll holder? All right, John. So we'll get our Torah out of the ark. And that's another thing. If you have a strong shoulder or a normal shoulder, right, you can hold the Torah. Just lean most of the weight of the scroll on your shoulder and then support it from the bottom. Just like that. Beautiful demonstration. He could be in airline safety videos. So, yeah. Yeah. Oops, there we go. Okay. Do you want to see if this one or that one's lighter? I think this one might be, but you can test really quick. Do you think that one's lighter? Okay. So let's do that one and grip it from the bottom, the wooden part. Good. Perfect. Either shoulder's okay. What? You can switch, especially as one shoulder gets tired. That's all right. Yeah.
One left, I'll put it on the left.
All right. So before we start our first, and the circle is called a hakafah. This is an ancient ritual we see in a number of different spiritual traditions. So this comes back to kind of encircling a space and marking it as holy and set aside for a special purpose. You see this also in Islam, right? There's a tradition to go and do circumambulations around a special holy site in that religion. So something we share with other communities that goes back thousands and thousands of years. So that's sort of what our dancing is, along with being a celebration. But before we break into the dance, we have ancient words that's kind of call and response. So it goes, Anna Adonai Hoshiana. Try that. Anna Adonai Hoshiana. Anna Adonai Hatzlichana. Anna Adonai Hatzlichana. Anenu, anenu, v'yom korenu, ay, 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 anenu, anenu, v'yom korenu. And then we'll start our first dance with our music. So that was our first hakafa, our first circle. It's traditional to do 7, but we're just going to do 3 extra powerful hakafot tonight. So we'll do the same chanting we did earlier before the next song. And whoever's the next Torah carrier, get ready to get the Torah. Anna Adonai Hoshiana. Repeat that. Anna Adonai Hatzlichana. Annenu, annenu, v'yom koreinu, ay, ay, ay. Annenu, annenu, v'yom koreinu. Here we go. Number 2. All right, double check if you have any shoelaces that need to be tied. And we'll start our third and final hakafa soon.
There isn't really an instrument, we just wanted to play on.
Okay.
Not quite yet.
Anna Adonai Hoshiana. Repeat. Anna Adonai Hatzlichana. Annenu, annenu. Anenu, Anenu, Vayom Koreinu. Third time, let's go.
Mein jüdischer Mädel, sie ist zu schön. Mein jüdischer Mädel, mit der jüdischen Kind. Vor ihrer Erde, die sind wie
All right. So quick vote. Do we want to unroll the Torah a little bit or just do a virtual tour tonight? You choose. Yeah. Will anyone be very disappointed if we don't unroll it a little bit? All right. So we'll do the virtual tour. Okay. So can everyone see the screen? So on the tour, there are different things you can find inside a Torah scroll. So first, it takes about a year for a scribe to write a scroll. The thing that looks like paper is parchment, which is kosher animal skin that's treated and bleached so that it's light enough and uniform enough on one side for the ink to show up consistently and be legible, because it's very important for a kosher Torah scroll to have every single letter be legible. And if there's one little letter where the ink has been scratched off, then you would take it to a professional scribe called a sofer or soferet, and the scribe would have to fix that part. So it's pretty easy to fix if it's just a typical word like he saw. But if you have the name of God that's got an issue, like if someone misspelled it on accident, a little handwritten typo, then you have to do the whole section over again, which is at least 3 columns long, so quite a bit of work because you can't erase the name of God. That's seen as kind of desecrating God's name. So when we have the Torah put together, it's got all these pieces of parchment, which we'll see on the next slide, where they're sewn together, but the very first piece has a lot of intentional blank space before the story of creation. So there's a teaching on this that you shouldn't ask what happened before the beginning, right? If you ask that question, you need to be on psychedelics to figure out what the answer is. So it's kind of a mind-blowing question to pursue. So we generally start with the beginning rather than what happened before the beginning, but you see that signified by all the empty space on the Torah scroll. So here you can see where 2 pieces of parchment are connected. So they're sort of like, not quite a hole puncher, but they have to puncture little holes so that you can create the ability to sew them together. And everything's very organic, kosher, kind of animal pieces that are used to create that thread. So whenever you look at a Torah scroll, you can see that kind of seam. There'll be one higher than the other, and that's showing you where 2 pieces of the parchment were joined. Then there's a special Torah font. So most letters that we see in a prayer book don't have these special crowns on top, but there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 letters that have a special crown with 3, and then some have additional ornamentation of 1 little squiggly or 2 little squiggly marks that are decorations, but not the crowns. So the letters that you would always see the crowns added to are the letters Shin, Ayin, Tet, Nun, Zayin, Gimel, and Sadi. So if you ever see a text that has those crowns, you know you're looking at something that was written on parchment rather than something that was printed on a computer. So this would be true of a Torah scroll, and also a kosher mezuzah would have, it's also written on parchment and rolled up and put inside the mezuzah container. So we looked at the beginning of a Torah book. You'll have a little gap. So with Genesis, you have the largest gap because you've got a blank piece of a little stretch of parchment. Here we go from Genesis to Exodus, and you see the gap is only about this big. It's not like a whole blank page. It's just enough to show you that something has changed, that we moved on to a new book. And then in the left corner, you can see the last book of the Torah. When the book of Deuteronomy ends, just like the beginning of the Torah, it's got that same blank space. So we don't really have as many questions about what happens after Deuteronomy, because as soon as Moses dies in that book, you have the next book of the Hebrew Bible, which is Joshua. And Joshua kind of continues the project that Moses was working on. Yeah.
Is the line of Hebrew at the very top, is that, I can't see it because it's too far away, is that Bereshit?
So in the left, that's the beginning of Exodus. So the right corner, you can see the right before Bereshit would be the top word in the top right corner here. But the second one, I wanted to show you a more standard from Genesis to Exodus.
On the right-hand side, Bereshit is the first word there.
Mm-hmm.
One page before the beginning.
And then the last words, the last word in Genesis is b'mitzrayim, in Egypt. And then you move on to what happens in Egypt, the story of the Exodus. So the Exodus is the second book of the Torah. Any other questions so far? I know we're kind of speeding through things. Yeah.
Okay, if you have like one letter that's messed up, somebody repairs it, how do they repair that? Do they glue in a piece of kosher parchment with dental hide glue?
So you can't like glue it. It would be too hard to roll. So especially if it happens early in the book and you have like some inconsistencies in thickness. Basically, the ink is made of gall nuts and a couple other things. And it dries sort of like whiteout. So if you had whiteout on something, you could scrape it off with your fingernail. You don't touch the Torah with your actual fingers because there's too many oils that would damage the parchment and especially the ink. So there's a special tool that's like basically a razor where you scrape very lightly because you don't want to scrape too deeply. You'll scrape off part of the parchment. But you wait for it to dry. You say, well, it's not like a quick, like, just grab your eraser and go. It's you wait for it to dry. When you're sure that it's dry, then you very carefully scrape off the ink that has dried and try not to damage the parchment. And then once that's been cleared, you have to like kind of brush away all the little parchment crumbs, sort of like the eraser crumbs you would have using a pink eraser. And then once that's all clear, you can rewrite the letter. And it's written with a quill rather than kind of a normal modern pen.
But if there's a hole, you have to do the whole page again.
If you mess up God's name, that's one you can't just razor out and write again. So the whole, even if that was like the last word after like you've written multiple columns, you're just like, all right, well, I guess I have to start this whole sub-project all over again. So, yeah. So whenever there's something that has like God's special name written on it, then it has to be given a certain amount of respect. So it would be buried like a person. And sometimes rather than putting it in the ground right away, people will collect stacks of things that have God's name on it. So it could be like Torah scrolls that are just beyond repair. Those could be kept in a special storage place called a geniza. And then left there until there's enough to like merit like digging out a full, grave space. You're not gonna just, I guess you could, but no one really like digs just one shovel of dirt to put a single sheet of paper with God's name on it and, buries that. So you usually wait until you have enough holy texts that can't be repaired, and then you bury them all together. And some people ask to be buried with holy books. So it's thought to like bring kind of extra merit, to bring like to have part of a Torah scroll with you, or even your talit with the tzitzit fringes cut off, so to have holy items there. So if that's something you want, if you want some accessories for the afterlife, you could bring those. Yeah, Ron?
I think that they'll have an burial about a year or 2 ago.
Mm-hmm.
To show them the whole area space.
So even local synagogues will do that. And again, you usually wait like a couple of years until you have enough material to make it worth digging a whole spot. Okay, so let's see. The end of the book, so there's different words for God in the Torah. The first word we see is Elohim, which means just kind of generically God. That looks like it could be plural. There's two plurals in Hebrew. There's im for masculine words and ot for feminine words, and every single word in Hebrew is masculine or feminine grammatically. So some people will argue that Elohim's kind of showing the shift from polytheism to monotheism. We've got the idea of all gods suddenly becoming singular. And the Hebrew verb with it, so it's Bereshit, bara, Elohim. In the beginning, God created. Bara means he created in the singular. But if it wanted the gods created, it would be Bereshit, baru, Elohim. The gods created rather than bara, Elohim. So baru versus bara. Either way, we see Elohim used pretty consistently to refer to the one God, though technically grammarians could say it looks kind of plural, but it operates as a singular. So sort of like, I don't know, what's the plural for moose? Moose is, it might just be, I don't know, it could be moose, but sometimes the word could mean many and sometimes just one. So Elohai, so there's different suffixes you add. So modern Hebrew, you tend to have the possessive pronoun as a separate word, like Ima Sheli, my mom. But in biblical Hebrew and older Hebrew, you would combine it. You take the my and you add it onto the word, kind of like, I don't know if anyone studied German, where they just like put 1,000 words together to create a concept. So you do that in Semitic languages as well. So in Arabic, you have that where you take a mother and then my, and to put it into one word, my mother, imi, in Arabic, right, instead of aim. But it's the same idea. You add the e sound at the end, that means my. But if it's plural, then instead of saying e as your vowel sound, it becomes I. So like we have Adonai, right? So again, sometimes we'll hear the I sound, Elohai, versus Eli, right? Those are the same concept, two different words for my God. So Elohai comes from Elohim, and Eli comes from El, the shorter version of Elohim. So there's a whole bunch of different words for God. This could be like a 10-hour class on just that. But we're just going to do two tonight. So Elohim is the first word we see for God. And then we've got the special name, the one that can't be erased. So that's Yud, He, Vav, He. And no one knows what the proper vowels are. They took the vowels basically from the word Adonai to give it something. And we still don't pronounce it out of respect for this holy name. But you can see it in the text. This is the priestly blessing. Then another word that comes up a lot is Yisrael, which literally would be translated as Israel, but sometimes refers to Jacob once he wrestles the angel, often refers to his children or a tribe or community that descends from him. So eventually, by the rabbinic period, Yisrael means the Jewish people. Like there's a prayer, She'asani Yisrael, which means like, who made me a Jew, not who made me exactly Jacob named Israel, right? So the word Yisrael shifts over time. In the Torah, it generally means the people, but they'll say the children of Israel, right? B'nai Yisrael. So then there's some cool formatting. Typical text will just be one big blob. And then if it's a special piece of poetry, which often the poetry is older according to scholars than the prose. So like Micha Mocha is one of those poems. And you can see from the spacing that it's a special part of the Torah. Then some other pieces, like the 10 Commandments. Can you see all the spacing that happens in between the individual things? So a lot of these sentences are very short. It's just 2 words in Hebrew. Lo tirtzach, you shall not murder. So in English, you have to use a few more words to convey it, but it's just 2 words in Hebrew. And then you move on to the next one, lo tin'af, don't commit adultery. Lo tignov, don't steal. Not bearing false witness against your neighbor. So it's just a lot of like lo, 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 right? No, 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 no. Thou shalt not do this. Thou shalt not do that. And you can see the space between all the thou shalt nots. Then another important piece, one of our most important prayers, is the Shema. Comes directly from the Torah, and it's written with a unique font. The last word of Shema or the last letter of Shema is made larger, so it's like they changed the font size, kind of. You've got a large ayin, and then at the end of the last word, echad, they enlarge the dalid so that the word ayin dalid emerges, which means aid or witness. So it's sort of like being a witness or verifying the truth of this statement. And speaking of the Shema, do you want to sing the Shema together? Or we could skip forward. All right. We'll just do a quick Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch le'olam va'ed. And then in the scroll, it goes straight to V'ahavta. There is no Baruch Shem. That line comes from the Midrashic or rabbinic tradition rather than the biblical text. So when you look at, there's a special book called the Tikkun, which we've heard of Tikkun Olam, right, repairing the world. Tikkun LaKorim is a book that will help you not make mistakes when you're preparing to read Torah. So when you look in the Torah, or in the Tikkun, you see a few different layers of notation. So you have the consonants, which you would find in a Torah scroll, the Hebrew consonants. You also have the vowels, which do not appear in a Torah scroll. And then you have a third thing. All these, see the red marks? Those are called trope. And they serve as both musical notation and as punctuation. So some of the music is like, oh, it's getting dramatic here in this Torah story. And some of it's like, all right, the story's over, and we're done, right? So there's a bunch of different ones, and each little squiggle has its own name. And to make it super complicated, and this is why cantors go to school for 5 years, is there's Torah trope, which is different from Haftarah trope. So if it's the first 5 books of the Bible, right, then it's Torah trope. If it's after that in the prophet section, then it's Haftarah trope. Then there are 5 different special scrolls, like the book of Esther. The Megillah we read on Purim has its own trope. When we read the scroll of Lamentations of Eicha on the 9th of Ab in the summer, mourning the destruction of the temple, that's got its own trope. And to make it super confusing is they use the same things, the same squiggles with the same names, but you have to know in one tradition, right, if it's Torah trope, then it would be chanted one way. If it's Haftarah, it's chanted another. And to make it even more complex, every region around the world created its own variation. So when I was in 8th grade, I went to a Jewish day school. There was a girl in my class named Hannah, and she was like, oh, I chant it differently. I know Hanoverian trope. And I thought she made up Hanoverian, but no, that was a thing. So Moroccan trope's really cool. It sounds a little bit like Halloween music to me, so it's a different, I think, modality. The Reform movement standard trope that we use for like V'ahavta, that's called the Avery Binder one, because I think that's the cantor who kind of transcribed this particular tradition that came from Germany. And some of them will end on like a higher note when they're ending a Torah verse or not. So I'm just going to go through what do each of these little squiggles sound like. So the top line has some of the most common ones, and as we get lower down, it goes to the more rare ones. I think the last one, Shalshelet, only appears like 7 times in the Torah, whereas the first line appears all the time. So the first one goes, Merchati pra munach et nachta, sof pasuk, mapach pashta munach katon, yetiv zakef gadol, darga tivir rivi, tilisha ketana, tilisha gedola, gershayim shalshelet. So you can see like some of them add a little more drama. You're like, oh, Abraham's grabbing the knife, right? What's going on in this story? So, and sometimes sof pasuk that looks like a semicolon, that is basically a period that shows you the verse has ended. And you'll chant that a little bit differently if it's the end of a whole section called an aliyah. All right. So let's do the blessing. Speaking of chanting Torah, let's do the blessing before a Torah reading together. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach, Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et torato, Baruch atah Adonai Noten HaTorah. And And this is the last little bit of Deuteronomy, the very end of the Torah. V'lo kam navi od b'Yisrael k'Moshe asher yida'o Adonai panim el panim lechol ha'otot ve'hamofetim asher shlacho Adonai la'asot be'eretz Mitzrayim לפרעה ולכל עבדיו ולכל ארצו ולכל היד החזקה ולכל המורה הגדול אשר עשה משה לעיני כל ישראל. So ends pretty dramatically. Never again did there arise in Israel a prophet like Moses who kind of knew God face to face and saw all of these miracles, especially in Egypt, against Pharaoh and his people. And the last word in the Torah is Yisrael, right? The people of Israel, the Jewish people. So it ends with the letter Lamed. And we say Chazak, Chazak, Venit, Chazek. And then this Torah begins with the letter Bet, Bereshit, right? In the beginning. So the Torah spells Lev, Lamed Bet, or Lamed Vet, which means heart. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz ve'haaretz hayta tohu vavohu ve'choshech al penei tehom ve'ruach Elohim merachefet al penei hamayim. Vayomer Elohim yehi or, vayhi or. Vayar Elohim et haor ki tov. Vayavdel Elohim bein haor uvein hachoshech. Vayikra Elohim laor yom velachoshech kara laila. Vayhi erev vayhi voker yom echad. And so as soon as we finish the Torah, we go right back to the beginning, the first book of Genesis, and the story of creation, when there isn't even light yet. There's just this crazy chaos of darkness and some wind going on and the elements of water, and God creates light. And as God creates each thing, God says that it's tov, that it's good. And on Tuesday, God says tov twice. So a lot of Orthodox people will try to have their weddings on Tuesday because it's a very good day, very auspicious time to start your marriage. All right, so we'll do the blessing after together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. And we'll return our Torah to the Ark, but before we do, we'll say Mishiberach. Is there anyone tonight whose healing we are praying for beyond Alyssa and Marcy? With the power of community, we pray for their refuah shlema, their complete healing of body and or spirit, with the words of Mishiberach. Mishiberach avotenu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mikol habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. So I'd like to invite up Elliot to share some brief announcements on behalf of the board. And we don't have the printout, so do you know anything? Brisket? Talk about brisket?
All right, shameless plug time. We're going to have Risket for the Brisket on November 6th after religious school. So come around noon. It lasts until about 12 o'clock. There's a $12 admission, and then you'll be voting on which brisket wins. So we'll have briskets provided by myself. It may or may not be the best, and some other people. So please come out to that. It'll be a fun fundraiser for the synagogue. Thank you. Shabbat shalom.
Bruce, do you want to share about the Klezmer group?
Yes, just.
Into the microphone so we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Just real quick. First, it's nice to be here tonight, and I want to introduce our musicians for tonight. Jess Sims is vocal. Mark Riley is playing clarinet. So we're part of a band called Heavy Shtetl, and we're really missing Marcy Hurwitz tonight, who plays accordion and piano for us. So if we sound a little bit thin, a little bit off, it's because we're missing the glue that holds us together. So Heavy Shtetl was born out of another band called Klezmer Amim, which started, 25 or 30 years ago? Molly?
13, 42.
A long time ago. Klezmer Amim means klezmer musicians from Congregation Oramin. It started sort of as a study group to learn about klezmer music and to play it. Well, it soon became a working band where we're playing out occasionally. So that group's more of an ensemble. We've had as many as probably 12 musicians in that band. We're probably down to about 9. We have been on sort of a COVID hibernation, and we're coming out of that hibernation very quickly, very soon. So here's my little pitch tonight. So if there's anyone out there who'd like to learn about klezmer music, if you're a musician, and but you have to be a musician, and if you'd like to try, playing with us with the big band Klezmer Amim, whether it be a trombone, a trumpet, fiddle, drums, clarinet, tuba, whatever you play, except probably electric guitar and folk guitar just doesn't seem to work in klezmer. So anything else is good. So if you play those instruments and you want to learn about klezmer music and like to play, let me know or the rabbi. We especially need a bass player. So if you have a bass player, we'll come in and really recruit you hard to join the band. So just want to put in a plug for that, and thank you all for listening to us tonight.
I've been told I have more. So on Tuesday, October 25th, we'll have the Risk Community Problems Assembly from 7 to 8:45 p.m. at the Second Baptist Church on Southside, which is 3300 Broad Rock Boulevard. Please attend that if you have anything to share at that meeting. Thank you so much.
So very thorough announcements. Thank you. There are stars up above, so far away we only see their light long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. And tonight we remember with love Paul Sockett, father of Terry Schneier, and the yardsites of Helene Bonney, aunt of Marilyn Harris, Lena Derzowitz, grandmother of Sheila Schnitt, Leroy Falk, grandfather of Lori Coulter, Hilda Lazelle, mother of Lisa Levine, Ida Navakis, aunt of Henry Horwitz, Bernard Papuri, father of Shira Ledman, Mildred Preville, mother-in-law of Sheila Preville, Jack Seidenberg, father of Art Seidenberg, and Ray Stewart, grandfather of Allie Moorhead. Are there other loved ones we wish to remember tonight?
Dr. John Meeser.
Zichronam Libracha, may their memories always be a blessing. We rise as a community of support for the mourners Kaddish. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma Divra Chirute V'yamlich Malchute, B'chayechon Uvyomechon Uvchaye Dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala Uvizman Kariv V'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Le'olam Olamei Almaya, Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitromam V'yitnaseh, V'yit hadar, v'yit alev, v'yit halal, shemei dekudesha, brichu, le'ela, mikol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, V'imru, amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, and may we be a source of comfort for all who are bereaved. And let us say, amen. And please be seated. We conclude our service tonight with Oseh Shalom, and thank you again so much to our klezmer group. This is very incredible, especially sort of last minute without a key player, that you've pulled it together, and it sounded really good. So thank you guys for making this a wonderful holiday. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. All right, and we'll continue with Kiddush and motifs. If you want to go to the table near the back and grab some wine or grape juice. If anyone wants the words, you can find them on the table here. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila lemikrae kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim, ki vanu v'acharta v'otanu kidashta mikol hamim, v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-Shabbat. L'chaim. And thank you again to everyone who carried the Torah during our dance, and for everyone who went a little bit outside your comfort zone and learning some new dance moves tonight. And thank you to Ron for making the challah, and Ed has brought us some extra 2 loaves for Shabbat. Is it from Finland?
It's from a bakery, from a Finnish baker.
A Finnish baker, awesome.
A Jewish Finnish baker? I don't think so.
All right. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. B'te'avon, bon appetit.
Pretzel rollers.
Make sure you feel like you use your time well.
Yeah, well, time with y'all is We'll be in Buckingham County and John Landing in Howardstown. His best friend, Larry. That's why we're playing here. Anyway, this will be Dad's first. In line.
Good. Good.
Could be worse.
Yeah, I might do after we get
Might be a dramatic thing. That'll work on it.
Doing this is fun.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, so hopefully Marcy will.
Yeah. We go play outside of the house. You know, she went and played for him.
was the time commitment you're talking about?
Well, there's the two